شاء الله وصلتنا. أم بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه ثم أما بعد. So to proceed, inshallah, today is the first day of our Ramadan in Me 2025 series. It's our fourth edition of Ramadan in Me, and I'll be moderating the meeting today. So inshallah, we have with us here Malam Ali Yasarki is my teacher, my friend, and my brother. So our topic today is to be talking about what it means to be young Muslims. But before that, I'll just give a brief introduction on Malam Ali Yasarki. Malam Ali Yasarki was is a local native of Zaria. He was raised there and he studied with several scholars there and as well as with scholars in other places as well. He has a bachelor's and master's degree in the energy related field. He's someone that I know has a lot to tell us on what it means to be young Muslims. He has been a leader of the Muslims, of young Muslims when he was in school in Cyprus. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to benefit from his knowledge. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the goodness that grant us the ability to act upon that which we know. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'ana wa anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna ilma wa warzuqna fahma. So Mala Ali Sarki, as soon as you're ready, please you can unmute your mic and switch on your video so we could start the conversation on what it means to be young Muslims. Malali, are you there, please?
نعم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you're in a place where you could share a video with us, that would be very great. Otherwise, the audio is just fine as well, inshallah.
Inshallah, now I'm trying to do that.
Oh, okay. Now, so our discussion today centers around four things, inshallah. Our discussion today centers around four things. The first one is based on the hadith of Rasul sallallahu ما نهيتكم عنه فاجتنبوه وما أمرتكم به فافعلوه ما استطعتم. And the scholars rahimahumullah, they says this hadith stands as a very fundamental basis of what a person should do when a person wants to progress in life. And they explain that the hadith, it teaches us that our Rasul sallallahu is trying to encourage us that that which we leave, that which we do not do sometimes might actually be more important than that which we do. You see, some of the modern motivational speakers, they tell us that perfection starts by not making mistakes, rather by reducing the number of mistakes we make before we can progress to becoming perfect and excellent human beings. So based on this, we divided our topic today into four sections. The first one are the necessary things we must avoid as young Muslims if we want to succeed in deen and dunya. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. What are those things that we must avoid? What are those necessary things that we must avoid? Then the second section are those things that we must do. وَمَا أَمَرْتُكُمْ فَفَعَلُوهُ مَا استطعتم. So that's our sister tells us in this hadith that whatever he commands us to do, we should do it we should do it as much as we are able to. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ وَاسْمَعُوا وَأَطِيعُوا, as the verse comes in the Quran. So that's the second section. That's which we must do, the necessary things that we must pursue. Now, after this necessary things that we must pursue, there are two other things. Our legacy. What are those extra things that we can do? The mustahabbat and the tahsiniyat that can help us to advance in our dunya, in our deen and our dunya. And the last one is our legacy. As the famous hadith comes, in إِذَا مَاتَ الْعَبْدُ انْقَطَعَ عَنْهُ عَمَلُهُ إِلَّا مِنْ ثَلَاثٍ. So what are those type of things that we can do as young Muslims, such that we can start preparing for a life of legacy, a life that we leave so much behind. We leave the Muslim Ummah better than we left it. So inshallah, we will start with the first one. What are those necessary things that we must avoid? So, Malaliu, what's what do you have for us today? What are some necessary things that young Muslims should avoid?
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. إن الحمد لله
وعليكم
نحمده
السلام ورحمة
ونستعينه
الله وبركاته.
ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. First and foremost, جزاكم الله خير for giving me the opportunity to throw one or two things that might be beneficial. Even though I know I'm with my teachers, you would have said, I'm your teacher, you're also my teacher. And we are just trying to remind each other, inshallah. So perhaps we might say something along the line that will benefit us, inshallah. And we might make mistake also, and we seek the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala against any mistake that we might make, and allow us to benefit much from what we are going to say. So,
آمين.
رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Inshallah, there are some excerpts from some books I think we might benefit from. The first book is part of the Golden Series. I think that the Dean Communications used to make. And one of them, the Series 9, is a book that talks about Ya Ghulam, O young man, and it's about the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that gave Abdullah ibn Abbas some advices that he teaches some words. Where he said, "With Ya Ghulam, inni u'allimuka kalimat, ihfadullah ila akhir." So this is one of the books, and the second book there is also is part of the Dean communication series books. It's about concise legacy, and some experts here and there from Sayyid al-Qadir and Madarij al-Salikin, inshallah. So since it's about young people, young Muslim, we say, so we need to know who is a young Muslim. Uh, Actually, there are a difference of opinions with regards to who is a young Muslim. And usually it been said that by the scholars that as soon as a person reach the age of adolescence, that is puberty, to the age of 30 uh, or 32. But then uh, some scholars uh, regard it as much more than that, or usually between that age. And Ash-Shawkani made a reference with regards to who is a shab, meaning a young person, and he made mention of the Arabic term of shabab, which means youth, and we say, as we know, and it means that movement and activity with regards to the meaning of the word. And then it is a youth, is a word that is used for a person that reached to the age of puberty. And then there is another opinion of the Shafi'is, which they regard the age of poverty ends at the age of 30. Uh, I don't know if I'm clear.
You're clear. I'm following.
Now, so then there is other scholars of the other madhahib, like the Malikiya, which regards the age of youth, starts from the poverty till the age of 32. This actually the opinion of the Ibn Shas in his book Al-Jawahir. Then An-Nawawi goes with the opinion that Ashab is a person who reached the age of puberty and then he passed the age of 30. So usually around that time, until after he's 30, he's considered a kah. And after that stage is considered a sheikh, which means an elderly person.
Other person.
So with regards to this understanding of the age of the youth, so that will lead us to knowing actually when the age of youth start and when does one start to reap the benefits of this age. As we mentioned earlier, the age of poverty, which is usually around the age of 17, 18, I believe, that's when the age of puberty starts. So as a young Muslims, this one of the stage that he will focus and maximize whatever he's going to do that will benefit him after this age where he cannot be able to do so. And we can derive this meaning from a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but the hadith of the five before five.
Okay.
Now,
نعم. So the hadith of شبابك قبل الحرب the hadith
now,
that the hadith was your the youth age before the the old age, and finally حياتك قبل موتك, if I'm correct, and your
No,
life before you die now. So yes,
no. So the
enlighten us, please.
no, like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, "اغتنم خمسا قبل خمسة." Then you should take advantage of five before five. Which the first one is shababak, which is the youthful age, which is the one we're going to discuss about. Qabla haram, which is before your old age, before the age that you cannot be able to do what you can do while you are young. And the next thing is your health or صحتك قبل سقمك, before your illness, which usually you will see that a young man is attached to health. He's always healthy. And the
Allah
other one
Akbar.
is the third one is the ghinaka, which means your health or whatever you have of riches before before faqrik. Because as we know, life changes. Anything can happen, and at any instant, you are rich today, tomorrow you can be poor. So these are one of the things that we take opportunities of. And the fourth one is your free time. فراغك is your free time قبل شغلك, because usually at the youthful age you will find that you have a lot of time, abundance of life, abundance of life, time, I mean. And then the last thing is it's your life before your death.
Allah Akbar.
Now, and what I believe about this hadith, well, it's a hadith that can change the course of life for any for any mindful young Muslim that can reflect and ponder upon its meaning, check his shuruh of the hadith. It's a hadith that he can be able to learn a lot from. Especially, you will see that as a young Muslim, you will have all these things. Usually, you will have the energy, you have the free
Now,
time,
have the health,
you have the health,
and
and
also
you have the strength.
the ability to hustle, to make money, so
Now,
the access to
well,
wealth.
now this is the most. And if you check all the hadiths that are talking about the things that praise a youth, actually, it's him utilizing his time.
Allah Akbar.
For example, the one talking about the tawbah of a youth, of a young person, is more better than the tawbah of the person at an
Oh,
elderly
that's
age.
all.
Because
Yeah, Allah Akbar.
yeah, because the urges of the young man it's more than the old man. And
I'm
the
the older
young
person.
person now, and the younger person is yet to experience a lot of things, while all the older men or the elderly uh, can be able to resist some urges, either by experiences of life, or they have come to realize the painful result of something that they have involved themselves in while they were young. So
Allah Akbar.
they have a lot of things that they can use to cope, or
A
a
lot
lot
of
of things
tools,
that will help them.
experiences, knowledge, perhaps even maybe community, and
Now,
like you said, like they've tasted the negative experiences of this thing such that they don't want
now,
to face one again, or like they have some positive tools with which they can stay away from this thing. So which like younger people generally speaking do not have.
now,
So now,
and perhaps he does not have the energy to do so.
Allah
Perhaps he
Akbar,
have,
yes, yes,
yeah, perhaps, and also he might have other shugul, like the hadith made mention of, like faraga قبل شغلك, before your free time, before you have your old you
yes, which also adds kind of adds up. Sorry to cut you short. I was going to like make the point that also kind of adds up because when you're younger, you kind of have like so much free time on your hands, which gives you access to just the people generally say there, idle hand is a devil's workshop. So if you're a bit older, like you're more occupied with activities that would not even perhaps take your mind to this things that might be problematic for you.
exactly. And also, as Sheikh Uthaymeen made mention also in his book of the youth problems that has been translated, one of the things mentioned that corrupt the young minds is joblessness.
Allah Akbar. So one of the things that a young person should avoid is just being jobless.
Now, because as we made mention in the at the beginning of the discussion, Shawkani made mention about the translation of Shabab. It's a means movement.
Allah
So
Akbar.
you have to move.
So
Is
a
the
young
age
person that's not moving is not really young. It's not a shab.
now?
Yes, I
He
see.
has to move. He has to move.
Yeah.
And
So
so
now,
now
I was going to ask if do you want to like read certain part of those excerpts from the books, or we should focus more on the things that you mentioned about how a young person should focus on, like the hadith that you mentioned, like shababaka qabla, is it haramak? I'm not
now
I can't remember it off the top of my head.
now
So, and there are other four things that was mentioned: your health before, when you're sick, your free time before you're busy,
now
and your life before you die, and things like that. So if a person wants to take advantage, for example, of their health, what are some things that they should avoid doing so as not to like put their health into jeopardy? Or, for example, if a young person is maybe into business or trying to look for a job, what are some things that a young person should avoid so they don't waste that access to money, that money that they have at that point in time?
the first thing that one can be able to do is ibadah,
Allah Akbar.
because it's one of the how can I say defining elements that gives directions, sense of direction to the young person, and then knowledge, like access to a lot of knowledge, and this comes from sincere people. What I mean by this is the Murabi, the people that the sincere scholars that do tarbiyah,
Allah Akbar.
meaning they look into a lot of perspectives, so you can gain a lot from their advices, and they know ways to to address such things to the young person.
Now, so if I'm getting you correctly, what you're saying is that if we kind of want to extract both opposite and positive and the negative side. So on the positive side is the person should seek knowledge and should seek to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because that will define them. And on the negative
Now,
side of those things is a person should avoid ignorance. Because once
now,
a person is ignorant, it gives shaitan access to them, either through shubuhat or shahawat, either through
now,
doubts or with desires. But if a person is attached
now,
to a person with knowledge, and I think there's one of the Salaf rahimahullah, he said that one of the best things that can happen to a youth on the sunnah is that he finds an elder that's also on the sunnah to guide him. I think there's
now,
one of the narrations do say that. So I think to extract what you're saying that we should avoid ignorance, we should avoid laziness when it comes to ibadah. And the opposite of that is that we should seek knowledge, and you specified that we should seek knowledge with the marabbis. So if just to I think me myself, I'm in need of that. So if you can just maybe perhaps give us, if a person is looking for like a mentor, if a young Muslim who is eager to practice the deen, who is eager for knowledge, eager for activity, eager and has all this energy and drive, what are some traits of a Marabi? What are some traits in an elder that should be seeking to be a source of guidance for them?
now. Inshallah, I think what we can get from that is we can understand the necessary tips that the young person can understand that can take if we look at the things that shaitan can take advantage of the
Allah
person as
Akbar.
well. So by understanding his tricks and plots and his ways that he comes to the mind of a young person, so we can be able to, inshallah, know where not to put our hands in. For example, the young person usually he is inexperienced. There's a lot of things for him to know ahead of him. There's a lot of wisdom he has not reached yet. There's a lot of knowledge that is not within his capacity. There's a lot of maturity that he has not gained yet. There's a lot of experience and exposure he has not gained yet. Why Shaitan has been given that opportunity has been here for years and years. So the shaitan take advantage of this of the youth to this stage that he is. So one thing is that knowledge part and seeking the guidance of the elder, the elderly ones. So he should
No.
avoid hastiness. Hastiness. Usually, hastiness is one of the
You should
things.
avoid what, please? Hastiness, you said. No, you said you should avoid hastiness. That's
Now,
jumping to
now,
conclusions. Go.
now, you should avoid hastiness. And then the next thing is laziness.
Okay.
Avoid laziness because these are one of the things that make the heart weak and cause inactivity to the person. And by Shaitan usually leverage these opportunities that a young man has, like he is inactive, because he will be able to put some thoughts whatsoever in his mind. He has the ample of time to gather thoughts that are not supposed to be there for the youth, and seeing that he has no like sufficient knowledge for him to be able to differentiate what is right and what is wrong. So
No.
he'll use the opportunity to misguide the young person. And then
You know the verse,
another thing is ghafla.
heedlessness.
Now, another thing is ghafla. Inshallah, all these things I'm mentioning, we can find further explanation of them in the book of the Uthaymeen, inshallah.
Inshallah. So I was
Now,
going to say, like, the things that you just mentioned, like the three things you mentioned, reminds me of two verses in the Quran. The first one is the verse towards the end of Surah Al-Sajdah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا لَمَّا صَبَرُوا وَكَانُوا
now,
بِآيَاتِنَا يُؤْمِنُونَ.
now,
So, like the book of Imam Ibn Qayyim, Mr. Dar Sa'ada, he talks about the importance of knowledge and patience, and how these two things are like Umud ad-Din. They're like the
now,
most kind of like they're kind of fundamental pillars of the religion. That if a person lacks one or the other, there will be problem. And also the verse in Surah Al-Furqan, رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. And some of them Mufassirun, they interpret this verse to mean that we should follow those before us, because obviously if you're going to be an imam in taqwa to those coming after you, then it means you have to have followed the imams of taqwa before you. You know, the verse that says, وَمَن يَرْغَبْ عَنْ مِلَّةِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ إِلَّا مَنْ سَفِيهَ نَفْسَهُ. Whoever, and who is the person that fools himself? Who is the person that strays away from the path of Ibrahim except he who fools himself? So yes,
now,
those things that you mentioned are kind of they're very important things actually. It less, and on the side of practice, there's evil and patience with qadar. So in doing, person should have that drive. That's what I say. That hima or hima. I think we could try to like wrap up on the other two sections in the next maybe 10 to 15 minutes before we invite some of the other people on the some of our other participants and our mothers and
now,
fathers to maybe to drop to give us one or two pieces of advice. So as a young person, I guess the next question that I have is that as a young person, in line with the four things we mentioned in the beginning, what type of influence should the young person allow into their life? What type of things should the person allow to influence them? And what type of influence should the person stay away from? If you could give us one or two pieces of advice on that, please.
um, the first thing we are aware of is being with the truthful people. This is one of the gifts I think a young person can ever have. People surrounding him that are
I
honest.
think we can't we hear you clearly. Can you please maybe put your mic closer? No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better now, alhamdulillah.
Now, then the first thing, one of the very important things that the young can leverage from things that can influence him is good company.
Allah Akbar.
And this good company are people that are truthful.
اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين.
Now, Ya Lula, now. So being
نعم.
surrounded by those that are truthful, what I mean here is this: the truthful people do not they neither manipulate or tell you something that they do not know.
الله
And
أكبر.
whenever it comes to something that they do not understand, they do not put their mouths into it. So
Mm.
inshallah, you will have a lesser pathways to misguidance because they know their limits. They are truthful.
Allah Akbar.
So inshallah, even if they are not going to provide with you with the necessary advice that can help you,
At least they will not
then
misguide you.
now you are safe from their misguidance or their issues. So
Allah
this are
Akbar.
and then the second thing, and these people usually truthfulness and amana, it comes hand in hand.
Mm.
Truthfulness and amana is highly important because someone that you took as someone that is close to you have to have amana. This is a must. This is a must. These are the things that you don't joke with. Truthfulness and amana. If you are really
Yes.
going to put someone in your circle, these are one of the things that you look into. Um, because the thing is by there are الصدق يهدي إلى البر, like it comes in the hadith. So usually by being with those that are truthful, you will see from their activities, from their character, from the way they manage things, they handle things differently. And this is only if a person is with those that are truthful. So these are the kind of people one can allow himself to be influenced with. And these truthful ones have to be have to have at least a certain level of ilm, of knowledge, and that has to be the deen knowledge.
No. This some of the things you're mentioning at the moment reminds me of the story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam when he was in the prison and there were two people with him. And when they, when they came to present to him their case, they says, we see that you're one of the truthful, you're one of the Siddiqeen.
Na'am.
That's a very interesting because these two people they were in prison because they had gotten into trouble. If in fact,
Na'am.
they're into some
Na'am.
trouble. So when they were trying to get out of that trouble, or they're trying to like improve their life. One of the things that they mentioned about Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam is that they see that he is one of the Siddiqeen, he's one of the truthful
Na'am.
people. So that just what you were saying just reminded me of that verse. And
Wallah,
also like the person
jazakallah
no, I'm
khair.
going no, I was going to also like the verse in Surah Al-Kahf, إِنَّهُمْ فِتْيَةٌ آمَنُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ وَزِدْنَاهُمْ هُدًى. I talked about a group of young people, and you see like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he described them with a lot of very good qualities. So they were together with themselves with these good qualities, and I'm sure that one of those good qualities must have been truthfulness and amana. Otherwise, the saying goes, "La imana liman la amana lah." So
Na'am.
so uh, so if
Na'am.
Allah described them with iman, then it means inshallah they also would had amana. So now just what you were saying just brought those things to my mind
Wallah,
now.
wallah, jazakallah khair. There's a lot of
وإياكم.
things that can come out of truthfulness, wallah. Because as a person you are with him that is truthful, whenever something comes that increases the knowledge of both of you, you encourage one another towards applying that thing in your life. And whenever
الله
one
أكبر.
of you made mistake, now you will see that yes, he will not give you justifications for your dalala, for your disobedience, or
He
give
will
you
not give
some.
you delusion.
No, he like you and I know. Okay, this is wrong. Khalas.
الله أكبر.
So you are not helping one another with deception. There have to be this level of openness. So these are kind of the people that you allow in your life. Have they can have some certain of influence because whatever everything is just based on truthfulness. And then
نعم نعم.
the next thing is elderly people that they have in their life, like they spend most of their life in the ibadah and good deeds. Because usually those kind of people you will find that they have some sort of hikmah. These are kind of people that have hikmah. It's not that they spend their life in disobedience and then they become elderly and then suddenly they have hikmah. No, these people experience life and they were good. They did a lot of good things and then they reached to this position. So the youth have to attach himself with the elderly ones. And the elderly ones which they have hikmah now. And then another thing, part of it is it's scholars, sincere scholars. And And then selecting scholars is one of the most important things that the person, that the young person should make so much efforts in, because
Like the statement of Ibn Sirin.
now exactly. So the selection of scholars, like let's say the case of Nawawi, rahimahullah, during his era, he has to go and choose the best of scholars that are in his time to go and
MashaAllah.
study on that thing. So because one thing is, as a young inexperienced person, you are not exposed to certain kind of knowledge, and then usually there's this high reverence that we give to the scholars. So whatever comes from him, you just take without any much digestion or thinking, because there's this level of trustworthiness, and this is a person that teaches the book of Allah or so. So it's easy for you to consume. Usually there's no this barrier, so you just absorb everything. So one thing is, you make sure, because this is one of the cases you will find yourself in, that you absorb a lot of things. Then you have to make efforts in searching the best of the person that you can be influenced with, the scholars. So you make inquiries, you search the character, and find a murabbi, someone that look at much aspects of your life, not just giving you the knowledge, but
Also,
that
like
understand.
maybe it kind of brings you up like spiritually and emotionally. I think that's
Now,
someone's
now,
interest. Yeah.
he understands you psychologically. He understands where you are at the scale of tarbiyah. You understand your level of personality. He knows your eagerness. He knows your weaknesses. He is able to detect your strength, because this is a
Okay.
person that can be able to see the goodness in you and encourage you towards it, and he will be able to see the weaknesses in you, and will revoke you or deter you from making a lot of mistakes. Like
MashaAllah.
in contrast to the scholar that will just give you the knowledge,
I
whether
see.
you
I see.
applying it in life is not his
He's just
concern.
interested in passing
Now,
on the knowledge.
or now,
Yeah.
because you
So
will find
I
that
think like at this, sorry to cut you short. At this junction, I want to introduce my co-moderator, like my co-host, my Brother Makhtar. Brother Makhtar, are
now,
you there, please? So, Brother Makhtar is my co-host. We've been on Stuff and World and Ramadan and me for about 4 years together now. Either
mashallah.
working on the as a moderator or someone that's planning or like discussing on some panels or some other things. So, I think I would like for Brother Mukhtar to take over from here and to kind of lead the discussion towards in the world we are living in as young Muslims now, given the kind of environment we find ourselves in, the kind of like this community and communal or like societal norms and circumstances we find ourselves in, how can we continue? What are those things that we can do to preserve our identity as young Muslims? Brother Mukhtar, are you there, please?
Naam, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa
Wa
alaikum
alaikum
assalam.
assalam.
So
Please,
now I'm going to like hand over to you and with Smela and you as well to perhaps shift the discussion towards the aspect of how can a person preserve their Muslim identity in this world we are in the environment we are in, given the when I say the societal ills. So we know there's so many hadith that talk about each generation would not pass after another one except that one is it's worse than the former one. So how can we preserve our Muslim identity? Now I will mute myself now and listen to both of you discuss now.
um, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. First of all, I'd like to apologize for joining the meeting late, and you know, I hope everyone is doing fine and in the best states of Iman, and you know, and I pray Allah makes it easy for us to not just pass this knowledge, but also assimilate it as best as we can. So, the as we all would know, um the discussion about the youth and then Islam and then the youth and Islam together as a whole has always been a hot topic. And it has, when I say hot topic, it hasn't been a hot topic for just like a century or two. It has been a hot topic since the beginning of time. One of the major issues that Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, our father, had was coping with his children, Abil and Habil, down to Prophet Ibrahim, Prophet Noah. There's almost no great story you would read in the Quran or within the Surah or Hadith that doesn't have whether it's a direct or indirect impact on young people, you know. So I can't remember how you framed the question, but then if I was going to answer it, and
So
listening to what Sheikh Aliyu has said, now.
just you said like I was just want to remind you away from the question that what are some ways, what are some things that we can do? What are some things we can do at this point in time to preserve our identity as Muslims in a world where almost everything is trying to take away your Muslim identity from you?
Um, Alhamdulillah. The first way I'd like to answer is this question is if you're the actions you take are usually, as a human being, the actions you take are usually determined by the destination you want to go in.
Allah Akbar.
So if we put that in frame of mind, because personally I'm the kind of person that likes to view things practically. If you view that from like a from an Islamic perspective, where do we want the youth to be? Where do we want them to go? As a Muslim person, how do you preserve your identity with regards to where you want to go? First thing you need to know is that okay, I am acting with Jannah in mind, or I'm acting with a life of tranquility and taqwa and things like that in mind. The first thing you need to know is you identify who you are and identify who Allah is in relation to who you are. Because the saying goes, I can't remember how it goes in Arabic, but it says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, know me before you worship me. I can't remember how it goes in
Mm,
Arabic. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically says, know me before you worship me. You find out that in a lot of, not just households, but even madrasa and a lot of institutes where they teach Islamic knowledge. And mashallah, a lot of them are doing good work and all that. They focus so much on the theoretical aspect of, being Muslims and things like that, without really touching on the identity of God and the identity of Allah
Allah
subhanahu wa
Akbar.
ta'ala in the
So
relation to a human being.
if I can pause you for a bit,
No?
so what I can say is that like the verse came, فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ. So that you should know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that there is no other deity worthy of worship except him, and you should seek for forgiveness from your sins. So what you're trying to let's say emphasize on is the fact that a person needs knowledge or like a kind of ma'rifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to know who they are in relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is that correct?
You actually do, yes. And
Yeah.
it is very important. And the thing about the Quran is that the Quran is very good at opening a lifelong discussion about the
Allah
human
Akbar.
identity. Because I remember, I think it was Sheikh Noman Ali Khan that was discussing about this in his tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha. He basically says that Surah Al-Fatiha is a conversation and a plea, and somewhat a summary of the entire Quran that the servant puts as an offering towards Allah in his salah
Mm,
17 times a day. And then the rest of the Quran, all the remaining 113 chapters of the Quran, are a reply from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because the first verse of Surah Al-Fatiha says, um, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Allah could have easily just said, Ihmadullah, you know, praise Allah or something. But then Allah says Alhamdulillah, meaning regardless of whether you choose to acknowledge it or not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
he
deserves all
deserves our
thanks and
praise.
praises because he is the architect of reality. He's the one that created everything that we know and everything that we have and everything we can understand. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. And then gradually he begins to open the what's it called, the lifelong discussion. And if you really look at it over like the learning curve of majority of the Sahaba, if not all of them, it was an extremely gradual process. It was an
Allah Akbar.
extremely gradual process. So I
Yeah, man,
would not
there's
necessarily
some. I was
now.
going to say, there's some narrations that tell us that Umar radiallahu anhu, the pretty much second greatest Sahaba, only after Bakr radiallahu anh, that he was supposed to have learned Bakr over like almost eight or so, maybe even more amount of years. So and sometimes we memorize
Mm.
Bakr in maybe 6 months, 1 year. But like if you are taking that amount of years to learn Surah Al-Baqarah, so one can only imagine how much impact it had on his heart and in his actions.
Mm. Now, and you're actually very right because I was actually thinking about this as you were saying it, and it also reminds me of a friend of mine. Um, may Allah be pleased with him.
Mm.
He basically in the secondary school where I went to, he was one of the forerunners in not just Quran but Arabic and then basically basically Islamic knowledge. And then because I was quite close to him then. I asked him when I was trying to learn Quran from him. I asked him about the meaning of a hafiz because that time I was really psyched about memorizing the Quran and things like that. And he looked at me and then he was almost humorous. He was almost laughing and he was like, "A hafiz is not someone that just memorizes the Quran in quotes because anyone can memorize the Quran. Anyone can memorize the Quran. A hafiz is someone that absorbs the content of Quran into their hearts."
Okay.
Because it's very different when no matter how it's just like if somebody this is a comparison and nothing can compare to the word of Allah anyways, but for the sake of giving an analogy, if someone is reciting something in Latin and they recite it over a period of time, no matter how much they memorize it, it is not a justification for the fact that whatever that statement in Latin means, they actually understand it, you know. So just as an example. But anyways, the whole idea behind the identity is we as young Muslims must be willing to take the gradual step and the gradual process. Just like Sheikh Ali said, he said we shouldn't be in haste. A lot of times we tend to want to learn these things fast. I remember pondering upon I think a few weeks ago, and it dawned upon me that if you look at the trajectory of the life of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam,
Yes,
regardless
sir.
of how pure of a human being he was all through his life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him prophethood at the age of 40. And
No.
that actually speaks to something. It actually says something because at any single point in time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have given him the mantle of prophethood. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided that it was at a time when not just Apple, but also like maturity and different other aspects of being a human being have settled within his life, before donning the responsibility of prophethood. So the first thing is that another thing is that try to attach as a Muslim, you should try to attach your journey through maturity also towards Islam. It's not just
Mm.
about, I'm memorizing Juz 15, Juz 15 today and then Juz 16 probably next month and things like that. It's not supposed to be like a mechanical process. It's not supposed to be like it's an emotional journey. It's a spiritual journey. Like you said, Umar radiallahu and may Allah have mercy on him. He took a long time. And I think someone asked him why it took so long for him to memorize the whole of Surah Al-Baqarah. And then he replied, because every single verse that he read, every single verse that he memorized, he didn't just memorize it. He learned how to read it with with the necessary tajweed, and then also applied it in his life before moving on to the next one. You
No.
know.
You
So
know,
and
just
I now.
I was going to say, like what you just said, it reminds me of like a couple of verses. The verses Surah Zumar, فبشر عباد الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. Not only like do they hear the verses يستمعون القول ويتبعون أحسنه, they follow it in the best, they follow the best of it. That like in deed, in speech, in actions and practice. And also the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, الذين the verse that says those who أولئك حق يتلونه حق تلاوتي. I think it's about page 19 or so. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about
Mhm.
like الذين آتيناهم الكتاب يتلونه حق تلاوتي. They give it its haq in tilawa. And the scholars do mention that tilawa, it doesn't just mean reciting or perhaps even memorizing, but also like applying. And some scholars talk about
Mm.
how a person can be a person of the Quran, even without perhaps memorizing the Quran or knowing the detailed meanings of the language of the Arabic language. Like, they have the in-depth, when I say in-depth acceptance of the Quran into their heart, such that they are a person of the Quran in their practice, in their speech, in the way they approach the world and everything else. So now I just wanted to add that to what you were saying.
No.
But also, sorry, please, I think we're going to we have about maybe 3 more minutes more. If we could kind of wrap up and uh call on our mother sister Aziza to kind of give us one or two pieces of advice on this topic before we can close for the day, inshallah. So please go on. Sorry for taking your time.
No, it's totally fine. I'd
Yeah.
like to touch on two things you said, uh, especially within the verse you recited. Tafakkur and tadabbur, they are extremely
Allah Akbar.
important. um, Being able to reflect upon the Quran and just understanding that. And this is also a very big thing we need to pay attention to. We live in an age and time where, and I'll try to wrap this up as quickly as possible. We live in an age and time where Islam didn't come to us as something new. Islam is necessarily something that almost every single person, at least almost every single person that is within a Muslim household right now, if you'd ask them, Islam is almost a heritage to them because it is something that not just they have been practicing, their parents before them have been practicing, and their parents before their parents have also been practicing. So you are seeing a pattern here. But then when something like that happens, it is very, very easy for what is known as a way of life or what is supposed to be a way of life to just become a function of heritage. And if we remember very well, it is very similar to what Allah has described a lot of the what Allah has described a lot of those who came before Islam or a lot of those who came before the message of Islam came, how the excuses they gave for the religions they practice, when they ask
Allah
them,
Akbar.
they will say,
إنا وجدنا
these are
آباءنا على أمة وإنا على آثارهم
when Allah
مقتدون.
exactly.
نعم.
And the difference between that and Islam is that Islam is not a function of heritage, but it's a lifestyle. The reason why the Sahaba in their tens and hundreds followed the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was not
عليه الصلاة
because he
والسلام.
was not just because he was truthful, or not just because he was Al Amin, or he was from the Quraysh, or he was a spectacle of a human being. That wasn't the reason why. Because many spectacles have come before the prophet. He was not the only
عليه
exceptional
الصلاة
person.
والسلام.
Jesus was also an exceptional person. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam was also an exceptional person. However, the difference is that they saw Islam as a shifting dynamic from what the norm was. Islam
Allah
was
Akbar.
even in history, it is recorded. Islam is the first way of life, or Islam is the first institutionalization that has successfully broken the chains of slavery. Islam is the first institutionalization that has made knowledge widespread among every single person, regardless of race, regardless of your time, regardless of where you are from. Islam has broken all these barriers because it was a shift in dynamic from the norm. Now, when Islam now becomes a norm and it just becomes a function of heritage, people, especially we that are blessed with being born Muslims, a lot of times we don't value it as much as it is supposed to be
It was
valued.
valued by the first people. What you said now, and perhaps maybe we can kind of wrap up with this. It reminds me of two things, and both of them are kind of interrelated. There's this short piece by Tariq Mahenna. He was a prisoner, or he is a prisoner. I don't know if he's been released. He talked about the first thing we lost is khushu. The first thing we lost is intentionality. So are we just Muslims? Are we just believing in Islam because it's been passed down to us, or we're actually doing it with
Mm.
with intentionality and sincerity and pondering about it? Also, so there's like I think there's traditions that have been narrated down to us that one of the first things that will be taken away from this ummah is what? Khushu. Khushu. That's being mindful, being present in one's Islam.
God
So
consciousness.
being
Mm.
God's creation. And I think one of the most important things is that we live in an age of distraction. So perhaps one of the things that's very powerful that Islam, that being the Muslim identity can grant a Muslim or a young person, especially a young Muslim, is this idea of presence, intentionality, direction,
Mm.
and being particular about what we choose to engage in and what we choose to refrain from. So I would like to thank both of you, yourself, our brother Makhtar, our Ustad, and our Sheikh, our my own friend and my teacher, my brother, Malam Aliyu for their
Uh,
time, to be honest, because it's time is like you said, he talked about how we should use our time in a very good way. So
uh,
for the fact that he has given us our time and our brother Mokhtar for giving us his time
Assalamu
today.
alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Walaikum salam.
Yeah, Sheikh Umar, there's one of the most important highlights that I forgot to make mention of, and
Okay, please.
I think it's I believe, not even I think, I believe it's what thing of considering to reflect and act upon.
No,
We we have been talking about the how the young should lead his life and all and all. But
no,
the biggest thing is what Islam has offered in the nusus that should serve as the guidance, like milestone or guidance for the believing, for the young person. And I think this
no.
ayat in Surah Al-Luqman that uh, that,
Allah
uh,
Akbar.
that mentioned that Luqman alayhi
وهو
salam.
يعيده.
Now, so I think those verses, and then the hadith of Ibn Abbas about ihfadullah yahfaduk. So I think this program cannot be complete without this nusus.
Allah Akbar. So I think this yeah, we're almost at the end before we take in our contribution from my mother and we go on. Sheikh Mali mentioned two things that the passage in Surah Al-Luqman where Luqman والسلام, was talking to his son وهو يعظه and was admonishing him يا بني لا تشرك بالله, and and on and on and on and on and on, and also like the hadith of Ibn Abbas
And,
radiallahu anhu.
and
Now,
sorry to cut you, Mano Umar, because
now,
if you look at the theme of the ayats from its beginning, the thing that Luqman alayhi salam mentioned his son, and then the
mm-hmm.
advices that the Prophet
alayhi
taught
salatu wassalam.
Ibn Abbas, we see that they have similar
Similar. Allah Akbar.
things that are of like you can combine, you feel the connect between the hadith and the ayat.
I see.
Like the first important thing was the ibadah, was the tawheed. You understand, and then so on with regards to the other things. So if we can make mention of the ayat and then the hadith, inshallah, it can be of benefit.
Uh we are
We,
actually
we don't have
far
time,
and okay. Now, so
so
what we can do is
let's
this.
divide it in this way, right?
Okay,
We just take the main thing in the ayats.
okay.
For
I
example,
think
in the first ayah where it said
in the first ayah where it says وإذ قال لقمان لابنه وهو يعظه يا بني لا تشرك بالله إن الشرك لظلم عظيم. Are you there? Malali?
I think you.
Perhaps he's having some network issues. But yes, the first theme in that particular ayah is the importance of at-tawheed. And one of the Dr. Hatim al-Haji in his explanation of Manazil al-Sa'irin talked about how a person, it's impossible for you to be whole. You cannot be whole, you cannot be focused, you cannot be contained within yourself if you are distracted from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you are not in line with your raison d'etre, the reason for your existence, the reason for your creation. And you talk about the verse in Surah Al-Zumar, ضرب الله مثلا رجلا فيه شركاء متشاكسون رجلا سلما لرجل أن يستويان مثلا الحمد لله. That as and perhaps now we're talking about young people. If a young person is not focused in their life, if their focus in life is not focused on the importance of at-tawheed and the fact that they were created to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and all the other things that are attached to tawheed and is practice, then they will be distracted. They would have things call for their attentions. You have social media, you have peers, you have search for money, you have search for the dunya. Now, some of these things are not wrong in and of themselves, but whatever distracts you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is problematic. And the next verse, وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ حملته أمه وهنا على وهن وفصاله عامين أن اشكر لي ولوالديك إلي المصير. Importance of elders, importance of our parents to be specific in this place. But also we can also will I say add to that importance of elders, just like our brother Malandi has already mentioned, that one of the other things here is, and also in the hadith, you see it's connected. Ya gulam inni u'allimuka bi kalimatin ihfadillah. This is an elder. In fact, our Prophet ﷺ advising a younger person, Ibn Abbas, ya gulam inni u'allimuka. So in the next verse, وَإِنْ جَاهَدَكَ عَلَىٰ أَنْ تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيا مَعْرُوفًا واتبع سبيل ما أناب إلي ثم إلي مرجعكم فأنبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. And just like what Mukhtar mentioned, that the importance of khushu, importance of not just accepting Islam because it's passed down, but for us to do it with presence, with intentionality, with acceptance, and with sincerity. That we should not just be those who inherit our parents' religion, but we should do it with what? With guidance من Allah. And the next verse, يا بني إنها إن تكن مثقال حبة من خردل فتكن في صخرة أو في السماوات أو في الأرض يأتي بها الله إن الله لطيف خبير. Also talks about the importance of مراقبة and musahaba. That a person should always know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking account of them, is watchful of them. So ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يرى ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يرى. So if a person does no matter how evil or good, no matter how small an deed is, whether it's good or evil, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring it. So I think as young people, one of the mistakes we sometimes we tend to make is that we believe that certain actions we do now would not be of consequence in the future. And perhaps this might not be the best way to think, because you see the verse in certain is certain Ma'idah, when Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he asked his people to follow him and they didn't. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he had them wandering for almost 40 years. So you see, one mistake that they made led them down the wrong path for 40 years. So we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever mistakes we have made in the time we've spent as youths, and whatever mistakes we will make, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings us back to Him. وَأَنِيبُوا إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ وَأَسْلِمُوا لَهُ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَكُمُ Adab, the verse in Surah Al-Zumar, فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ, the other verses as well. So then there's other verse, the next verse says, يَا بُنَيَّ أَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَنَهَى عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَاصْبِرْ عَلَىٰ مَا أَصَابَكَ إِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. Luqman is telling his son, his young boy, that he should do what he should أقم الصلاة, he should observe the prayers. And the scholars have said that observing prayers is more than just praying them, but praying them with khushu, praying them with presence. And I think perhaps we should actually take a time, myself and Makhtar, to come up with a series of a lecture series that talk about intentionality in the life of a Muslim. How can a Muslim be more intentional about their identity, their practices, their speech, their thoughts, the people they mix with, and things of that nature? وَأَمُرْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَنَهَى عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. You should call others to good, and you should forbid them from evil. وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ. Recently I was talking to one of the elders and talked about how young people nowadays, we have no patience. Just tap on the button, things come. So when negative things happen in life, we also want to tap on the button and let that thing go. Maybe it's grief, search for money, something that we've lost or something we're trying to gain. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us. ولا تسعر خدك للناس ولا تمشي في الأرض مرحا إن الله لا يحب كل مختال فخور. Importance of humility. Humility before knowledge, humility before the elders, humility before those things that have value. The statement of Umar radiallahu anhu, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us honor with Islam, and if we sought honor with something else, we will be humiliated. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us and other young Muslims those who will seek honor with Islam. And I'm just trying to follow up on what Malam Ali was trying to do before he maybe joins us back. So please forgive me. And Waqdud Saltik, the next just talked about lowering your voice. I think sometimes when you're young, you feel like you're on top of the world. You're the one that know it all. So you want to tell everybody else, you do this, you do that. Your parents should do this. Your friends should do that. So what means Celtic? You should lower your voice. So that's also very important.
Mm.
And the verses go on and on. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easier for us to practice this and internalize it. So I will hand it over to Brother Mokhtar to give us one or two more piece of advice that we can work with before we with forgiveness from our mother. She should 5 minutes and we can close out for today, inshallah.
Just very quickly, another thing that Ustaz Ali talked on, which I think it was when I joined the chat, I picked on it. He said, being with truthful people is essential, is very important as companions because they would also when one of the virtues of being truthful is that it allows you to know the limits of oneself. And humility is extremely rewarding when you know the limits of oneself. I would wrap this up with a very simple story. In the life of Omar ibn Abdulaziz, rahimahullah, his son, there was a time in his life when his son was, I don't know if he was a governor or a vizier of a certain territory within his empire. And he got news that his son had bought a ring of 1,000 dinar. And then when he heard that his son had bought a ring of 1,000 dinar, he wrote a letter to his son and told his son to sell that ring. And after selling that ring, every single dinar from the money of that ring, give it out in charity, except one. And that very last one, take it to the wood carver and then get a ring and inscribe on it the following statement. And please listen to this statement, it's very important. The statement goes, may Allah have mercy on a man who knows the limits of his own self. And it's very it's very coincidental that today we have so many people online talking about the idea of masculinity, the essence of being a man, things like that, blah blah. And you to be fair, it is not surprising that people will go into this kind of discussions because we've come into a time in the world where even the most basic things that we know about ourselves are being questioned because of social media, because of, you know, and a lot of things which the Prophet ﷺ has predicted. But essentially, within the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept not just men, but then human beings above the human beings in a very special spot or giving us particular abilities does not necessarily mean we shouldn't know the limits of our own selves. And these limits cut across every single thing. And the Prophet's life was exemplary in exercising these limits. When you do ibadah, do it in limits. Do it in limits. When I mean do it in limits, I mean do it in limits to what you know. Because if you when you do ibadah based on what you know, it is much better than doing ibadah based on what you don't know. We all know the story of I can't remember who the Sahaba was, but he tried. I think he was asked about his ibadah, and he says he fasts without breaking, and he prays at night without sleeping, and essentially, and then the Prophet ﷺ told him, "I'm the best amongst you, and I sleep part of the night and pray part of it. I have wives, and I also fast part of the days, and I break part of it." So essentially, knowing the limits of your own self. Also, even part of growing up is understanding that the dynamic within you and your parents or you and the people that take care of you will change over time. The balance of care will change and shift towards the other side. And I and Sister Aziza have these conversations a lot of times. Even I and Omar have had it a couple of times where you you see that those who take care of you, you start as you gain in skills and as you gain in experience, you become increasingly capable of not just taking care of yourself, but reciprocating that care towards other people. And not just you start being in a position to give your own opinion, tender your own piece of advice and things like that. Out of even share experience, because as you grow up or as you spend more time doing more things, you tend to gather more experience along the way. Even then, you are still supposed to handle people around you with humility, regardless of there's a popular saying that Yoruba people have. They say, um, because you are bigger than somebody does not give you license to throw them away, or because you are in a position above someone doesn't necessarily give you license to treat them anyhow. And it cuts across cultures necessarily. So what am I saying? Humble yourself. It is extremely empowering. Humility is extremely empowering. Humility is extremely empowering. Um, there's a verse there's a hadith that says, and I'll use it to round up completely. There's a hadith
نعم
that
جزاكم الله
says,
خيرا.
um, لا يدخل الجنة من كان في قلبه مثقال حبة من خردل من كبر. Nobody will enter paradise if they have a mustard seed weight of pride. And what is pride? Prophet ﷺ very easily described it. Pride is the to avoid the truth and to look down on people. And those two things are very, very much intertwined. Very, very much intertwined. Because of the time that we have, we'll probably be able to expatiate on this in further lectures. But I really hope as much as possible that whatever we've been able to discuss here, whatever we've been able to say, whoever is listening to it and would listen to it for the sake of Allah will take the good out of it and then what begin to practice it, not just in their life, but influence it in the life of others, children, uncles, aunties, whoever. And whatever bad it is that we might have said, it is from ourselves and not from Allah because Allah is perfect. Subhanaka alhamdulillah, shalla la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakallah khairan.
وإياكم جزاكم الله خير. Thank you very much for your time and for the piece of knowledge that you dropped. May Allah make whatever we have said to be beneficial for us and forgive us from the mistakes we have made. So now I will call on our mother Aziza to give us uh, one or two pieces of advice. Can you please unmute if you're there?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam. Please forgive us for delaying your input up until now. Please go
Not
on,
at
go on. I
all.
shouldn't take your time. I shouldn't take your time. Just go on, please.
Not at all. It's a very interesting topic, and
Yeah.
we alhamdulillah, even though we didn't start as planned, Allah has it's the best of planner. Okay, it's not of course one thing is it's not about talking about being a young Muslim, you understand. From what we've
Mm.
gathered from everybody, we all understand what it's in quote means to be a Muslim. So I'm going to start, you understand. Mukhtar should answer, both of you will be answering it because I was hoping the Sheikh would be around as well, or the brother will be
I think he
around
had some
to
network issues. But
okay,
please go on,
to
go on.
maybe to conclude it. But maybe we could have another one just at the ending of the Ramadan Immune series to see how we can actually get something. Usually, let me go quickly with the question. Usually, we all have a slight knowledge of what is good and what is bad. You understand? And being
Mm.
a Muslim, we already know what the rules are. You understand? But in the times
No.
where we are in today, we see lots of Muslims finding it difficult and they're striving. Like, I remember one of you said it's not about being a Hafizas Mukhtar. That matter is actually understanding on the rules of being a Hafiz and all that, something like that. So, because we have so many people who have memorized the Quran, we have so many people who understand the Hadith, but in putting it in our way of life, because they say Islam is a way of life. Because from my own little understanding says that even when you sleep, you eat, is a way of life. You understand what I'm trying to? Because people think way of life is just about the Quran and all that. How can we help the young Muslims? Not just the young Muslims. How can you help the Muslim general? Because most times, majority of this issue actually come from the home. To be able to build their mind, their consciousness on the path to know that there are consequences, just like Brother Farouk said. You understand?
So,
To
yeah.
certain things that we do. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? Making it practical because everything you have all said, mashallah, barakallahu fikum. But how can we help build a practical understanding of this that people begin to get conscious of what they are doing? Like for
Yeah.
example, cheating during exams, listen to music,
So,
female not wearing hijabs. You understand what I'm trying to? We all know these are not right,
now,
but we get to do it
so
because of
if I can come in
societal
now.
issues that we are in. You see, like, so
No.
let Brother
So
Mukhtar
I think one
answer.
of the
So just a brief one.
Mhm.
It's similar.
Oh yeah, no. So I was actually going to
Then you now
say
conclude.
one of the things that Brother Mukhtar has said before, the importance of ma'arifatullah. Imam al-Bukhari said, al-ilm qabla al-qawl wa amal. So it's very important that a person has knowledge before speaking and acting. And one of those things, like Brother Mukhtar mentioned earlier, is the importance of knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think a lot of scholars mentioned this, that if a person wants to become a Muslim, one of the most important, in fact, the primary knowledge, the most important knowledge is knowledge about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think when the person is, alhamdulillah, understands Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, up until the end, and they internalize this. They internalize knowledge about the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fact that it's Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Malik, Al-Quddus, Al-Qahhar, Al-Ali, Al-Muta'ali, Al-Qadir, Al-Muqtadir, Al-Qadir. The fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is As-Sami, Al-Basir, Al-Wadud, Al-Jawad, and is what is ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير, is فوق عرشه باين من خلقه. And the person understand these names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they understand them, they internalize them, and they put practice of these names into their Allah, these names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala into their life. what that's going to do is that it's going to contextualize the knowledge that they have. It will make it easier for them to like you said, most of us already have knowledge of the rules and regulations of we already know the rules and regulations of Islam. So how can we internalize them? So I will hand over to Brother Mukhtar now to expound upon that or to add something else.
No, Jazakallah khairan, Omar. And Sister Aziza, thank you so much. What I would just simply like to add is, first of all, if you're a growing Muslim and wherever you are, if you're hearing this, the first thing you need to know is that your growth in the deen or your success in the ability to merge Islam with your lifestyle all depends on your love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it also and your love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will develop once you really understand or can frame it in your mind how much Allah loves you. When you understand how much Allah cares and loves us, it will make it easier for you to be able to stick to these things because you understand that all these things, all the do's and don'ts within the Quran, all the do's and don'ts that your parents tell you based on the Quran or based on Islam is all based on what? The love of Allah for you. And if you understand love in its most primal form, it is the ability to hold the person to a standard based on what is best for them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always hold you to a standard because He knows what He has created you for and He knows what you are capable of. Allah,
Sorry, one more thing. So, I'm sorry, short. You said yes, Allah will audience because He knows what He created for, but also He knows the capabilities He has given you. وَلَكِنْ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ فِيمَا آتَاكُمْ. Allah will test you based on what He has given you. So please
based on what He
continue.
has given you. Now,
Yeah.
I remember a hadith that describes the last two verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. And essentially, I can't remember who exactly narrated this, but the person said these two verses were were taken out from a treasure chest from among the bounties of Allah. The first of them was Amana Rasulullah bima unzila ilayhi min rabbi wal mu'minun. We hear it all the time. And then it gets to the part, "Qul amana billahi wa la nukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha." Allah will never give somebody a burden that is harder to lift than what they are capable of. And believe me, it might seem that older people don't understand. Okay, your mom is telling you to do this, your dad is telling you to do this. Whenever they are calling you, all you're hearing from them is expectations that you need to deliver from. Okay, you are still with school and somebody's talking about work, somebody's talking about different sort of things. And as young people, Omar and probably all of us will be able to relate to the fact that it is not easy. However, even in the fact that it is not easy, remember one thing also from Surah to Zuma. Anyone who hasn't read Surah to Zuma, I would highly recommend you read
Very important.
both very, very important, very, very important because there is a journey within that surah that basically traverses from not just what people used to think, but basic impressions that people have about Allah and basic impressions that people have about life, and how some of the times those impressions are really not true. I remember, I think it's in the fourth page, sorry, I'm taking so much time to answer this question, but really, a lot of times you need to expand on these things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Zuma, "Qul ya ibadiya alladhina asrafu ala anfusihim la taqnatu min rahmatillah. Inna Allaha yaghfiru dhunuba jami'a. Innahu huwal ghafurur rahim. وَأَنِيبُوا إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ وَأَسْلِمُوا لَهُ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَكُمُ الْعَذَابُ ثُمَّ لَا تُنصَرُونَ." Now, the first verse says, "O you, قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ." O you, my believers who have committed excesses against themselves, لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ جَمِيعًا. God forgives all sins. No matter the anger of Allah and His fury is something that none of us can imagine. However, His mercy encompasses all things. Allah didn't create you because He hated you. Faliyah. Allah created every single one of us out of love. And it's out of that love that He demands us to show up for ourselves necessarily. So when you read verses of the Quran, when you do acts of ibadah and acts of worship, do not belittle your own acts of worship. You don't know what people are entering. Have um, people have gotten or have received the mercy of Allah for much less than you think. for much less than you think. I remember the story of, I think it was the harlot that fed a thirsty dog, and then she was admitted into paradise for it. I remember the story of the man that killed the Jewish man, the man from the Yehudi that killed 100 people, and then he went to an Abid, 99 people. He went to an Abid. The Abid told him that, oh, you have killed 99 people, Allah cannot forgive you. This reminds me of what I said before about the difference between followership and knowledge. The Abid is a righteous worshipper. So based on what he knows about the God that he's serving, he knows that this person, or what he thinks, this person cannot be forgiven by Allah. Faliyah. But then he went to an alim after killing that, making 100, and the alim said, "It is the surrounding that you are in. Leave this place and go somewhere else." Now you can imagine this person has committed murder 100 times, and that is just one among the many sins that this person has committed. Now this person was closer to the land of mercy by a handspan. And because of that, Allah forgave all his sins. You know, there's even the story of this person that I think he committed zina or something, and then he went to pray in the mosque and seek forgiveness, and he had been in the mosque for a particular period of time. And then I think he was fasting as well. And then it was time for him to break his fast. He didn't have so much to eat. And then a man came to him. I think it was a needy man came to him with that needed food and things like that. And part of that bread that he wanted to use to break his fast, he cut out of it and gave that man. And on the day of
Wow.
judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he came before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the scale in front of him, weighing all his sins on one side and that piece of bread on the other side. And the piece of bread outweighed everything. So
Wow.
countless things. It is very hard to be a young person nowadays because so many things are fighting for your attention. So many things are fighting for your commitment. So many things are fighting for your presence. However, understand that because of the love that Allah has for you, put Allah first. Do not belittle your deeds. Even if it is 500 naira that you're giving out every Friday, even if it is less than that, even if it is that you are fetching water for ablution for somebody, or really just complimenting your mother for the things that she has done for you, do something. Allah rewards initiative. Allah
نعم
rewards
إن الله لا
initiative.
يظلم مثقال ذرة وإن تك حسنة
No,
يضاعفها ويؤتي من لدنه أجرا عظيما. بارك الله
no.
فيكم جزاكم الله خيرا. Thank you very much for that addition. So we might face some technical challenges in the next couple of minutes. So I would like for us to kind of maybe round up on a positive note. So I will call on our father, Engineer Dangugua, if he is on the, I think he's on the call, to like give us one or two pieces of advice and to round up for us with a closing prayer. Um, Engineer Dangugua, please, are you there?
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Yes, I am.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you very much, sir. I just wanted us to round up with a few pieces of advice from you, sir, and the closing prayer so we can wrap up. So we don't fall into we have about a 5 minute limit before we have a technical issue. So I'm trying to prevent that. So please, if you can give us one or two pieces of advice on how we should be better young Muslims, how we should preserve our Muslim identity as young people. And inshallah, maybe you close with the dua for us, sir, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, let me start by apologizing because I joined about an hour, I guess, into the program. But again, I had someone said the program did not start at the appointed time.
No.
I think I joined about an hour ago exactly. I think about 20 minutes after 5 or thereabout. So my sincere apologies because I can only deduce from the main topic
Oh, essential.
being
No.
young Muslim and so on. And then I picked some points here and there, point the Ustad made about manner. And I like also Mukhtar's definition of Hafiz.
Welcome.
Um, completely changed my perception. Well, let me say completely because yes, so it's not just about memorizing the Quran, but absorbing it. So I think I had that, and that is the beauty of this program. We learn from each other. So it's not about how old one is. But back to the main topic, and you asked me to provide a word of advice. So what I can just say is, if the youth, globally, I think a youth is someone that is within a certain age bracket. I think about 15 to 20 something. So I think there's no dispute about that. But again, that is a state and a stage.
Okay.
And you just, yes, so people just don't find themselves in that age bracket. It started from somewhere. And I will just share something by sheer coincidence, just something that happened this afternoon with my kids, a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old. I'm at the moment in Kaduna. We came in by train this morning, attending a wedding. So after the wedding fatir, we're returning back. I picked a bolt, and my 13-year-old likes football. I don't so much for. I'm not a football fan. So he asked. Okay, it was the 10-year-old that even asked a question about football, and the driver was listening. And wallahi, what the driver said, I reflected. I mean, I'm not completely condemning, what the kids are doing. I mean, it's part of their development and so on. But when he asked me that question, I couldn't answer because I'm not a football fan. So the driver said, "Oh, that he has nothing to do with football." Then he said, "Oh, why?" I mean, he was directly talking to them, as young kids growing up, and very soon they will enter that age bracket that I mentioned. So he said, "Oh, why don't you spend more time understanding, who he just mentioned, he said who the Sahabas are, and so on." And I said, "Oh, thank you, brother." That's the taxi, the Bolt driver. He just directly addressed them. So the point I'm trying to make, why I brought this as an example is, it's so recent, just a few hours ago.
Mm.
And so it's about priorities.
Okay.
And sometimes, or most times, that is what we kind of, as youth particularly, struggle. We struggle with that, getting our priorities right. So
Okay.
that is what I just want to, advise myself. I mean, it's not just about the youth, even the um, the older folks. We also struggle with that. So let us, as much as possible, try and know what our priorities are.
Okay.
And yes, the seeking knowledge is key and paramount as well. Um, and okay, yes, of course, we know we had some ayats from the Quran where I mean, clearly there's a distinction between knowledge and wisdom, because when Allah said um, knowledge and wisdom, so that means there are two distinct this thing. And
Yes, no.
yeah, like I think it's in Surah Al-Yusuf, right? When فَلَمَّا أَشْدَهُ when he reached maturity,
ما بلغ
آتَيْنَاهُ.
أشده وآتيناه علما وحكمة.
Yes. So and again, I think Prophet Musa alayhi salam, the same thing. I think
Yeah.
there was equally there is equally an ayah where Allah said the he was given knowledge and wisdom and so on. So yes, we need to seek uh, both. You know, going into the normal conventional gives us that, but again, we need to further seek the wisdom. So priorities. Let me not drag so much. That is just the key. Uh, the key. This thing I would like you know us to really go back
Um,
and think about. Yeah. So that's that is it. I don't know the beginning of the whole thing, but just to um, to seal the whole thing. I think that's just what I just want us to leave this evening with. Let us try and put our priorities right and choose the best. And like I said, it doesn't just happen by accident. That age bracket it started. So this is the time. Um, the, the years before you reach that youthful age. Uh, the years we should really be close to our this and see how we can shape their thoughts, try and change, just like the example I gave. Try and not necessarily change, but we can kind of induce. I'm struggling with the word, so we can kind of shape their way of thinking and so on.
direct their thoughts, perhaps.
Direct their thoughts and so on. So that's basically it.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much for the advice, sir. He kind of engineer Langwa, our father, he expanded upon it, but he just come back, like I said, to one very important statement: prioritization of things. Prioritization of things we want to seek, our pursuits, our goal, the things we want to get involved in, managing our time, our resources in that manner. So Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much, sir. We hope to be able to have you on the upcoming sessions or so we can benefit from your knowledge and your wisdom, sir. Jazakumullah khairan. So, if you can just make some dua for us so we can close with that, sir, inshallah, that would be great.
Okay. Alhamdulillah, so I thought when Mukhtar prayed, well, okay. So, yes, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. And yes, I also heard uh, the brother, you know, spoke, like I said, spoke about, Amana. Now, in one way or the other, all of us have this on our shoulders as well. So the prayer is we pray to Allah, the Most High, to give us the ability to, discharge, this weighty, in a way, weighty load that is on our shoulders, each and every one of
Um,
us. And for the organizers of this program, the uncle, the Farouk, Mukhtar, Azizat, and those of us that created time to be here. May Allah subhanahu and of course the Ustad. I understand that he's having some network issues. He's not here. But for all of us, and even those of us that are not here, and my dua also is to the entire Muslim Ummah. May Allah
Ameen.
continue to both onto his path, the path of the Deen. And this program, this is the first this year, today and tomorrow, I think, and then until the end of the month or thereabout. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the ability to, make programs a success, and may He make it beneficial to all of us. And for those of us that don't have the time to join now, if I think it is being streamed, or maybe it's going to be on YouTube. So
No, it's on
for
YouTube.
anybody, yeah.
We might
So
stop the live stream in a few seconds, however.
okay. So may He make this technology beneficial to the Muslim Ummah, make people benefit from from it. So I think with that, I like also what Brother Mukhtar said. We'll just close this with Fatiha. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد
نستعين
اهدنا الصراط المستقيم الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
آمين.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Please do not forget to join us tomorrow also at 4:30 p.m. with the same Zoom link and the same password and meeting ID. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless every one of you and make it easy for us to join the meetings both for tomorrow and the upcoming weeks. And subhanakallah wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Subhanaka rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wassalamu ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.